instructions, show you what I know. Need to take it easy, ain't no need to rush now, baby, nice and slow. All this love I can give to you, I expect just a bit in return. And you don't have to be perfect, love, as long as you're willing to learn, baby. Won't you come over, love, so I can show you love? I promise I got enough to give you all that you need, baby.
Hey, good morning, 7:38. Let's go ahead and play this story here from Nestor Lecanto, a great get, as we had Rear Admiral Benjamin Nicholson on yesterday, relative to the construction of $1 billion healthcare complex. I'm sorry, I can't help but say it that way. And so we do have Speaker Therese Terlaje, who is the legislative land chair in the KUAM News Zoom room. Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, KUAM, and good morning, Guam.
We're just going to play this story, a little context before we jump right into our interview. Again, it's Nestor Lecanto from the KUAM News team. Good morning. Start with just a status update on what is the status of those properties right now.
Speaking exclusively on the Link Show, Joint Region Marianas Commander Rear Admiral Benjamin Nicholson said the Defense Department was open to the use of Eagles Field for a new hospital complex because it would also support military operations in and around Guam. He said DoD could also stipulate that certain features be built in. But things changed when the Missile Defense Agency got congressional funding for a Guam site.
Now that we have the money, now that we're exploring the sites, it could be that site is really prime real estate and absolutely necessary for the missile defense system, in which case maybe the hospital wouldn't be built there. It would have to go somewhere else.
Meanwhile, Governor Leon Guerrero has said repeatedly that Eagles Field is her first choice for a new hospital. She also made it known that she has a license for the property, which her spokesperson clarified today is a license to assess the feasibility of the property for a medical campus. The Admiral made it clear that there's no agreement to build anything there right now.
There was license to explore if it was a good location. So just as we're letting the Missile Defense Agency look at that area to see if it would be good for missile defense, we're allowing the government of Guam to look at that area to see if it would be potentially good for a hospital.
And while he says no decision has been made, he makes a strong case for the property's use as a missile defense system site.
Quite honestly, that land that we're talking about, when you look at where it is, north-south wise, it's very central in the island. East-west wise, it's more towards the east, which the DoD doesn't have a lot of properties on the eastern portion of the island. It's on some higher ground. So all of those things make it very attractive for a missile defense system. So I think we need to slow down a little bit. We need to let the evaluations play out before there's any permanent decisions made on what we would do with that particular parcel of land.
Adloop Communications Director Crystal Paco San Augustine said, if the determination is made by the governor's task force that it is not an appropriate site, they are assessing other property. For Guam's News Network,
we need to slow it down a little bit, according to the Admiral. That was a big reveal yesterday on the show, Madam Speaker. So I guess just your reaction, your takeaway from that interview and that story.
Well, that was big news, I have to say, and I'm glad that you were able to talk to him and get that information, because obviously it has a lot of implications for many things. Number one, the hospital, right? The building of a new hospital. Number two, the landowners. Huge implications for the landowners. I think it has implications on the relationship between DoD, Congress, and the government of Guam, because the Department of Defense promised back in 2010, when the whole build-up discussions were happening, that they were going to have net negative impact on land on Guam, meaning we were going to get back more land than they were going to acquire during this build-up process. And that's how the whole land return methodology came into place by Congress. Congress wanted to hold them accountable to that promise and require, this process where the governor puts in a letter to the Secretary of the Navy which lands they would like returned, and the Secretary of the Navy has to respond yes or no to each of those requests. And so, I thought we were proceeding when the Navy had said they could return this land. And so now I think this is a huge step backwards, and it has implications. I think, there are discussions about building a missile defense system in that area of Guam. may have implications for surrounding landowners, as well as, of course, those landowners whose property it's going to be built on. Every time we see a big buildup of a base or, other facilities on Guam, there are other implications such as, burial grounds. We've seen impacted ancient villages. We've seen limestone forests and other, biodiversity impacted. And so huge, environmental studies go on and they point out these things, and yet, sometimes the projects still proceed. So right. I just think there are lots of implications. They talked about airspace, right? And the ability or closeness to the airport as being a factor in where they put this missile defense system. They talked about using a part of Guam that was not heavily occupied by, military facilities at this point. And that's what they want to do, is to, it's not enough the north, the south, the west, or, they want to concentrate on the other side. So anyways, yeah, I think there are many, many concerns. But for me, most of all, the biggest concern is, the promise that was made for the net negative, and whether we are going back on that, or whether, I'm hoping our congressman, this is something Congress felt important enough to intercede in, and I hope that they will, and that they will hold, DOD accountable for that net negative promise, and that our congressman will help us to ensure that, if it's possible, that these lands get returned. I still think the entire government of Guam should be united as to land returns. There is no reason why now, so many years later, we are going to divide ourselves as to land return when we have united in this for many, many, many years.
We are divided, though, because the governor was just going to bulldoze over these original landowners of property up at Eagles Field to build the $1 billion healthcare complex. And we did stories. You made noise about it. Yeah, and they were just ignored.
We have no business being divided on that. We need to be united as always. Otherwise, this is what happens. They're going to go back on their promises, or they're going to insist that there is no land available for return, except for little parcels here and there that, they can't use because they're too small.
So and thank you for the FOIA that we had sent. So we got to read all the letters, and we had the Admiral on. I was shocked at what he said, because when you read the letters, they're kind of like love letters, really, between the Navy Secretary and the governor. It was like, thank you so much for the Theodore Roosevelt, and we're going to do whatever we can to just give you this land at Eagles Field, and never mind who used to own it. And it was like, really seemed like a done deal. And then the governor had been, talking about, I got a license, they're going to give me a license. I think she might have even in another media said that she signed a license. And so when the Admiral's like, hold on, we got to slow down. There ain't no license. There's no lease. We just said, yeah, go look at it, see if it's feasible. Right. And so, there's another thing the Admiral said was he said that they were looking at other parcels, because the missile defense system is not just going to be possibly there, but it's going to be set up, all over the island. Right.
Yeah, I heard that too. And I'm very concerned. I think, it really does look like we should be concerned based on what, they had promised and the net negative, that may not be their policy anymore. And that was something, they very much announced that Congress tried to enforce. And so a huge shift.
Yeah, and because we'd seen that, so what you're talking about with this report they have to do, what is it, every year?
Yeah.
So they have to do every year, they have to say, these are lands that we're thinking about returning, these are lands that we're keeping, these are lands that, possibly we're looking at maybe. And so I'm wondering now with this missile defense thing, how much of that list of properties that may or may not have been up for return, how much that list has changed, right?
Right. We'll see, I guess, when they submit their new response, or the governor, and we'll see also the governor's request. And I hope the governor continues to request or insist that this land be returned. And, and we go through the regular process that we have put, that prior, administrations and prior senators have put in place here, that for land returned to ancestral landowners.
So in your opinion,
that license that you talk about, we discovered that during our public hearing. It was only a license to go in and survey the property and do other things like access. It's a license for access to it, not a license at all to build, but it was very clear from the paperwork that we had also read through that they were contemplating a lease and not an outright return. And that was the part that was very concerning to us back then. So there are compounded concerns now, I think, but I think most of all, we need to be apprised of the full implications of a missile defense system in that area of Guam, what that means for the current landowners, the surrounding landowners, and what other properties they may be using for this missile defense.
Yeah, I think it's just a little crazy that we're having this discussion on the other side of the island about building a power plant next to a school. And here comes the admiral saying, I'm going to put a missile defense system right next to Price Elementary, next to the Japanese school, next to Ladera Tower. I mean, it's kind of like,
Yeah, we haven't even seen the EIS on that yet. So I think they're still in preliminary stages. And so unfortunately, I hope that doesn't tie this land up, that they had already deemed excess, right? They had already admitted it's excess. We don't need it.
So what do you think this means, just from gleaning what the admiral had said? What do you think this means for the plans for $1 billion healthcare complex then? Do you think that we should start looking at option B?
Absolutely. I think, I think we always should have been contemplating all potential properties for which is really the best place to build a hospital, and what our goal is in building this new hospital. We know that many of these physicians have built their offices around the hospital. Our power agencies and water agencies have built facilities around the existing hospital or Oka Point to make sure that our hospital was the number one priority when it came to utilities, right? That they would not go out after typhoon or first ones to go back up after a typhoon, things like that. And so all of that, I think, it's very important. And we were seeing that the cost to do this at Eagle Field was really quite large. And it comes with restrictions as well.
Anything else on this Eagles Field thing before we move on to public health?
Not now. It's just that I was happy to see the congressman join this urging that the land be returned to the landowners. And so I hope that he will stay on board with that, because I think Congress plays a big role in this, this promise by DOD. It was Congress that tried to hold DOD accountable on that.
Did you say the congressman had gone to bat for the original landowners?
Yes, he had raised the issue that, that Guam law requires that excess land be returned to ancestral landowners, and we should not be skirting around that.
I missed that. Where was that at?
I think he issued a press release that I thought I saw, and he wrote a letter to the governor inquiring about that. That's what I read.
I see. Okay. Okay. So on to public health. You're the legislative health chair. There was a huge pivot here, and it was due to a shortage of test kits and supplies, right? And so now there were some comments too that were made by the incident commander, one of your former colleagues, former Senator Fernando Esteves, is now hired on at public health. He's leading the COVID-19 incident response. And the big pivot was that they're now prioritizing symptomatic patients and high-risk close contacts. And to me, it was a huge pivot because the governor had been out here saying, hey, test, track, and treat. And so people wanted to go, they want to go get tested. There was all kinds of problems. They switched to an appointment-based system. It was just a huge cluster mess. We get all kinds of complaints about people. And then now, so they're limiting it because of the test kit shortage. Do you know what is the issue with the test kit shortage? I know they're saying it's nationwide, right?
Yes. They say this about the medicine and the test. It's shortage nationwide. We had pivoted to a different kind of test, which is why this is really kind of shocking news, because we had just only recently pivoted to this other type of test. And now, we're told not enough, and we're going to cut testing altogether. It's concerning, I think, for those people who were relying on tests to feel safe at their workplace, right? Such as the DOE employees, especially, they were requiring that they all test negative to return, or that the students tested negative to return, things like that. And or that close contacts be tested. So, and I think the goal has always been, I hope for everyone, that we've been all united on this goal, and that is to prevent increased hospitalization and to prevent increased risk for those who are already at high risk, right? We wanted to prevent contact with those people because those are the ones who are at high risk of being hospitalized or dying from COVID. And so, my biggest concern, of course, with this reducing of the testing is that those people are going to walk around now with COVID positive, no symptoms, so they can't get tested, even though they were in close contact. They may know they're in close contact, but they have no symptoms, so they cannot get tested. But they will continue to be brought to work, with elderly. They might continue to be brought, to other places with children and elderly who are at high risk, or, who are the children who are not able to be immunized, the elderly patients who just have, comorbidities. Those are the ones that we don't want COVID positive contact, to happen with. Yeah. So that's what I'm concerned about. It's like, and I was actually so happy. I mean, despite the huge, I'm sure, overwhelming work for the Department of Public Health in the testing that they had done. And I want to commend them for the amount of testing that they really were getting done. That was an incredible amount of work. But I was so happy. I felt like the people are getting the message, right? They are understanding that close contact, puts you at risk of spreading this further. Go get yourself tested, and let's not do that.
Yeah.
So I was so happy people were getting that message, and we seem to be, uniting on that, and everyone was concerned equally. And that was good for Guam.
Yeah. And now it's like, oh, how dare you go get tested if you're not symptomatic?
Well, yeah, it's really unfortunate, the shortfall. I mean, I hate to see this, that it feels surreal that we have, we're going to limit who gets tested. We're going to limit who gets treated. That's even more concerning to me. The treatments are so scarce.
Yeah, there's 80, Madam Speaker, there's 80 COVID pills on island.
Right.
There's 80.
So,
we had 700 something positives last night.
Right. So I think they gave that to Guam Memorial Hospital to distribute, but still all the physicians have to go through that, one person to get this medicine, this treatment. And it's concerning. We said in the very beginning, we didn't want to see any kind of like VIP only,
Gotta be in.
To that monoclonal antibody that we did have, the Regeneron. And so that did not happen. I think they wrote that out in a really good way. They made it available, and it was convenient for people and doctors to, tell their patients to go and get that right away. And the earlier you get it, the better, right? So we're supposed to be receiving another antibody treatment for that responsive to Omicron in particular. And once that comes in, my understanding is even that will be in a very limited amount. But I hope that they will put this out, to the pharmacies or whatever locations can get this to the patients on a as an equal basis as possible, so that it's not only VIPs who can get those kind of things.
Yeah, it definitely should not be. And I talked to the doctors, and what they're saying at the clinic level is they have patients who are high risk, but they can't get the pills. So I don't know what's going on, if they're just in a freezer somewhere at GMH, but it does seem like there's difficulty in them, in the doctors being able to access it. But 80 pills, what are we going to do? Is this like a Hunger Games style lottery?
That's how it feels. When I say surreal, I keep thinking about those movies, and that it feels like that. Like we are pitted against each other to race to get the treatment, to race to get the tests, to fabricate stories so that we can get tested. I'm just hoping that we are going to get the supplies and the treatments that we need, that this is going to turn around quickly. And I know, nationally, that's the big push. So I hope that sooner rather than later.
I was really disappointed with the messaging from the incident commander, former Senator Fernando Esteves, because it's one thing to tell people we have a test kit shortage and we want to prioritize the monocle and the high risk. Like, that's good right there. But to shame people for wanting to go out and get tested when the government was the one that, I mean, you're right. I feel like we finally rounded the corner and got it into people's heads. Hey, know your status, know your status, know your status. They got that message. And now that they got that message, it's like, oh yeah, no, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, yeah, one of the things I keep thinking about that's not covered is the Manumco. Maybe they don't need to be tested but it's us who are the caregivers, right? Us who are the ones bringing them the food. Those people, they should be tested, I think. Those are why employers have insisted that certain employees be tested. They're the ones with contact with different types of things, or those that are critical, right? And if they have so much contact that if they were positive, they might bring down the entire workforce, right? That's a very real risk.
I mean, it's so interesting because you're right. When you look at the data, public health data, what do they routinely say? 18 to 39 are the spreaders, right? But we're not going to test 18 to 39-year-olds. Yeah, it's insane. You're right. We had a call, and I'm going to bring this up again. A gentleman called up. His son was COVID positive. He did not have any symptoms, but he wanted to go get tested. He did, and he was having a hard time getting his results. But I'm just thinking, like, all those situations like that, they're not being prioritized by public health because of this new shift in the limited testing. And so you were absolutely 1,000% correct, as now we're going to have people walking around hot with the COVID, passing it, spreading it. And it just seems a little, I mean, it is what it is. There's a test kit shortage, right?
Yes.
But I feel like with public health, they always say, oh, it's national, and they kind of like hide behind it. You know what I mean?
No, and I have to give them credit. I think that public health and the governor have really done their work to make these requests in advance, right? And it's the surprising part is that we're being told about it like only a day or two before they implement this new policy. That to me is if we had known about the shortage, then maybe we could have made the announcements earlier. But other than that, I don't doubt that there's an actual shortage or that they aren't doing their diligence to get these things. It's there are other complications like manufacturing and shipments. That's I hate to say it, but it in a lot of ways it's almost like we're back to those early days of COVID where we were short on all kinds of supplies, and we were feeling this way, very anxious about whether we're going to be able to take care of all those who really need it. And so I want to help public health in this regard. So I just want to ask everyone to, stay safe and wear the mask, when you go out, don't, and close contacts, we've been told if I'm in close contact, I'm going to try to stay away from my dad. That's for sure. That's what we've always done. And that's what we do, as a family. And I would ask all your families to do the same. Like if you already know what will protect your families, so let's protect them. If you're not sure because you can't get tested, then act
as if you're positive.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. That's what they said way back when we were short in the beginning. They said, just assume you have it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But I'm hoping public health will make some announcements today as to the availability of, the antiviral pills, as to the availability of the new antibody for Omicron.
Madam Speaker, there was a comment here. Do you believe that the spread is coming primarily from households as public health has kind of really hung their hat on?
Well, I thought I heard the Admiral say to you yesterday that they were, pretty much admitting that they were part of this spread. And I'm glad you asked him the question about the new, the big trainings that they're going to be having, 7 large, massive trainings. And they are going to be bringing in people from all over the world. So what their precautions would be, right? That we don't just continue. But I think everyone, we just all have to do our part. I'm not sure. I've got calls in my office and they're angry. They think because we are lessening our entry requirements for people from Asia that we shouldn't have done that. And there are people who are, of course it's being spread in households. That's a fact. Whether that's the only way it's being spread, I doubt that.
It seems like it's everywhere. Speaker, could you just hold on through the top of the hour? And I just had a couple more things. We're jumping on to KUAM TV right now. Good morning. We're brought to you by Pacific Points, Cabo Enterprises, ITN, and Jack in the Box on the Breeze. We're KUAM FM in Agatna, Guam. Guam, and welcome back, KUAM TV. It's 8:03. The link on the Breeze and on KUAM TV and on Facebook Live. We're everywhere. We're like the COVID, but very, very much in a nice way. Maybe that wasn't a good metaphor.
I don't ever want to be compared to the COVID in any context. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, Jason.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, my bad. Madam Speaker, you know what you're talking about. It's interesting to me because your messaging in this interview has been like, be safe, do your part. But it's a little conflicting with what the governor had addressed the people in her last YouTube address. She kind of came out and said, hey, we're prepared for this. It's going to be mostly mild. And and we had Dr. Berg on with Nestor, and he was like, hey, 500, 600, 700, 800 cases, it's going to be okay. And so it was interesting. We had John Fernandez on, and of course, parents now are really kind of asking about, can we go back to online, right, when they see these numbers. But what John had said was that if the public health authority is, and I'm paraphrasing here, but if the public health authority is not acting like we're in a super typhoon of COVID, then maybe GDOE isn't justified to kind of migrate back to something a little bit safer, because the authority leading this pandemic has kind of already said, oh, it's going to be mild, we're going to be okay, we're prepared for it. So there's a little bit of conflicting trains of thought, and when you look at the public showing up to get tested, they seem to be taking this way more serious than the public health authority or the administration is.
Well, I just think it has spread, far and wide, and not only and many things have happened at the same time. We've changed our requirements for entry, not just from Asia, but from the United States, where we know this is really rampant, the Omicron, and that it is spreading beyond the control of the states, right? Their hospitals are being maxed out in capacity. It's a big concern in Hawaii and everywhere. And so I think, that's our concern still. I think I would like the doctors to weigh in on whether they are seeing a lot more higher risk patients with COVID. And that is the concern. So we may not have had hospitalizations for the first 2 weeks, but now I think they're going up a little bit, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's what I read last night. And and I've heard some concerns from doctors that they are concerned, and that's why they're trying to get these therapeutics. Mm-hmm. It's because the high risk patients are before them with COVID now. And we are praying our hospital's not going to be overwhelmed. That's our goal, and we have to do everything we can to prevent that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could do a little more than pray, though.
Well, of course, and that's what I'm saying. We need to get this treatment out to the people who need it, who are at greatest risk. We need to, get the testing back, even if it's different type of testing, whatever we can get available for us here, so that it doesn't get spread in workplaces, and then we have shutdowns of very critical services. That's really, a big concern for me right now, because it's just everywhere. We were priding ourselves on, keeping certain things open, and but it's a big risk.
Madam Speaker, anything in closing before we let you go? Okay, so Dr. Hoa just texted in. He said the clinics are overwhelmed, and this has been the conversation I've had with different doctors from different clinics. So that's what I worry about. And if I was a frontliner at the hospital, again, I just got to say it's a little reckless to tell people that we're going to be okay with 800, 700, 600 cases, because if I'm a frontliner and I'm watching those totals and I know how this pandemic moves, I know that a certain percentage of those positives are just going to end up in the hospital by default. And so I know it's a numbers game, it's an odds game, but when the hospitalizations start to climb and we're not, we're limiting testing, and we're just, it almost seems like we're creating
it's a numbers game. It, as you say, but I think it's also, we with high risk people around us we're taking extra precaution. I would say those who get tested, a lot of them were motivated because they wanted to prevent bringing it to someone at high risk at home, right? They were the caregivers for parents, grandparents. They were in contact with them and they wanted to know, do I have to stay away, or not? And that is, to me, the biggest unfortunate part. And employees. Right? So employers had asked their employees to please don't come to work. Please get tested if you suspect you might have been in contact. And now, we're kind of mandating them to come to work. And despite the risk, and it's very concerning. So I think we just have to do everything we can to get these supplies here, get them out, and distribute it as fast as possible. And when we have the tests back, that we get the results quickly, So that was one of the issues that I had been discussing with the governor, the lieutenant governor, public health. It was my biggest concern just 3 days ago, before the new news that we don't have enough tests. The concern was that the results were not coming out fast enough.
Yeah.
And so apparently there was a glitch in that, and that they resolved and put more staff on, and they were promising everybody was going to get the results, even those with negative would get the results faster. And that's a big concern because people are out of work waiting for this, out of school waiting for this, all of
Very
that.
inconsiderate. Yeah, it's very, and I don't know where the disconnect is that,
Well, I don't think they're intentionally being inconsiderate. I think, this is a problem for all of us.
But where it gets inconsiderate, Madam Speaker, is that when there's a glitch in the lab and we're not informed of it to tell people, because I got to deal with all these people.
I want to ask you, Chris, to please call the Director of Public Health onto your show again. I mean, I really think we need more information, and I agree with you. It should not be that I have to track this stuff down and people call my office just to get certain answers. Senators are telling me that people are calling them because they haven't got test results, and that's not the way to get test results, to call your senator. It should be that the process that they've put in place is effective, it's going to work, and, we've been doing this already long enough to know that people, if you promise them something, then you should be able to do that. If you're making them signups or some electronic notice, then explain to us why that electronic notice is not happening, right? And is it a manual process that we're actually going to go back and input manually? Everything, when you inform them, they will be able to act accordingly. So when we informed them about the heavy risk of spread of the Omicron, how easily it spreads, they acted accordingly, and that you need to be tested because it's not symptom, you won't be showing symptoms necessarily, and so you need to be tested. They acted accordingly. And so, we need to give them all the information that we have available to us, what this treatment that we are expecting will resolve and what it won't resolve. And so those of you who can't even be helped by treatment, that you have to act accordingly, all of it, all of it. And the people of Guam they've done that. And so I just want to give them all the information possible so that they can do that. And I ask you to continue. Don't give up on asking these directors to come in and tell you directly, what it is that they're working on. I call them, I write letters, and I think we've done a good job of getting them to respond. And some of the, policies that they shift is because, we are pretty much, we won't let it go. Yep. And, but it's this, put the information where it belongs, and that is to the public. We've got teachers out there who are like, this big shift in policy at public health, I don't necessarily think there was any shift in DOE policy, right? So as you know, they were being treated a little bit differently, right? And so let's see, how does that resolve? And that's why the earlier that they can tell us that we're running short on something and there may be a policy shift and we're looking at this, the earlier they can say those things, the earlier DOE can adjust, right? And inform its teachers what other things we might be able to do, and the earlier employers can adjust. I'm really concerned that we might be seeing shutdown of entire businesses because of this. Again, right?
Thank you.
Which we were trying to avoid by not having lockdowns. Apparently, we might end up with that, unfortunately.
Unintentionally, right? Yeah. Well, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much.
And I will reach out to the director of public health. I have multiple times this year. As you guys know, they kind of checked out on us way back in the Delta surge. And you're right. It's rather unfortunate because, I mean, you think you're getting calls about people who haven't got test results. I mean, our comments, our phone line just constantly blowing up about people who, and these are just people who just want to know basic information. And when they come out with these guidances and they come out with them in the late afternoon, and then, I read them out here, a lot of times they're just more questions. And you're right, there should be, I mean, it's basic communications and messaging strategy. If you have a message, you supplement it with a live presence, because sometimes people have questions, right? And then, I mean, we have the parents listening, we have the students listening. I feel like we have the biggest audience. We reach across the most platforms, and if there's a place where public health is looking to get information out, this is it. And they're always welcome, and I'll put in the ask again, Madam Speaker. Thank you for your time.
Yes, I'd like them to inform us of the quantities of everything, the orders that they've put in for everything, so that we know what to expect, and we know that we should expect policy shifts by them, or guideline shifts, and not just be surprised by them. I don't doubt that they are doing what they think is in the best interest of the people of Guam, but it's this kind of late notice that's concerning to me. So I think it should be upfront. And so now we know the biggest thing that we are looking at is high-risk patients are inundating physicians. They're testing positive for COVID. Our hospitals are at risk, and we just have to act that way. And so we've got to use all of our resources. We've got ARP money available. We've got to use everything available to take care of that. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. If you get a chance, go through the comments. We get a lot of comments on this discussion. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay. We'll just run over these comments before we get into the news. Rosemary LaGuardia, who is one of our loyal Link family of listeners. Thank you so much, Rosemary. She says this new tactic will cause a lot of issues with job sites where an employee might have caught COVID and request to stay away from work, but their employer will insist or demand that they work. Bevtest J. Salas, you're spot on, Madam Speaker. William comments, Guam government is so sad. People are going to be dead because of... I don't know what that says. Joylene Lemus, yes, our elderly and those not eligible yet for vaccinations are small kids and babies. Huey, I'm certain private sector employers are willing to take that risk if it means productivity will stay up. Shipping companies in particular were hit the hardest and are still suffering from short staff and very large amounts of people starting to order more things off island. Mike comments, it's all in the communication. If you know you can't provide results timely, then be transparent about it. And that's what I was saying. It's if they know that people are waiting for the results, because I'm pretty sure when they do answer the phone over there, people are telling them. They turn on any media, they'll hear people complaining that they're not getting the results. And then we heard from Speaker there was a glitch somewhere in the lab. So come out and tell the people that, I mean, we got this message from the governor a few weeks back that we were prepared for this, that it was mild. And I would just say, tell that to the people who are dying, because I don't think it's mild. And clearly, when you say we're prepared for this, and now we're finding out, there's no RegenCove, we only have 80 pills, we're not prepared for it. And so where's the presence? Mike says, instead, the script that is being used is you will receive your results in 24 hours. Okay. Thank you, guys. Keep the comments coming in here. Matcha comments here on our Facebook Live. I don't even have the heart to turn someone with no symptoms away from getting COVID tested. I don't care if they take my salary away. I will voluntarily allow the testing. That's just me. Thank you. Okay, let's get into the news now at 8:17, Wednesday, January 26th. He's standing by with the very latest from the KUAM News team. In for Sabrina Salas Mantanani, and this 8 o'clock newscast is brought to you by Pacific Points right here on the link. Good morning.